Hello everyone, I'm Paul.
I'm Andrew.
And welcome to another edition of the Fan Voice podcast. Today we are going to be discussing who is the next Hayao Miyazaki. In our last podcast we discussed Hayao Miyazaki's final film, The Wind Rises, which was absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't checked that out yet, I suggest you do so as soon as possible.
It is on our YouTube channel.
Yes.
So go check it out.
Yeah. And so with Hayao Miyazaki leaving the film industry, we are left to question who will take his place.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a couple people in mind, and we're going to be discussing them today.
And we should mention, we don't mean exactly who's going to make Miyazaki movies.
Exactly.
Because once Miyazaki's done, he's done. It's like if all of Pixar was done. You can't just say, who's going to make Pixar movies?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Who's going to take the place as, I think, the main animator in Japan and kind of like the main director is definitely an interesting question. So,
without a doubt, I think we can both agree that no one could completely replace Hayao Miyazaki.
It's pretty much impossible at this point, especially with the catalog that he made.
Yes,
over his years of being a director.
Yeah, that's. I would say he's definitely the Walt Disney of Japan.
Yeah, most definitely.
Pretty much, but there's still a gap left.
Absolutely.
For the future. So someone needs to take up that mantle as the most popular anime film director.
Yeah.
So who do we have on our list first?
So first we have Makoto Shinkai.
Okay.
So,
all right, Makoto Shinkai.
This is kind of well, it's not just your thing, but you are a big fan of Makoto Shinkai.
This guy is my baby. He is my number one, and
he's kind of Paul's hero in a lot of senses, which is great. I just full disclosure right now, I have only seen 5 centimeters per second. And about, I would say, half of Children Who Chase Lost Voices.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah.
That's okay, because 5 centimeters is absolutely my favorite film of all time.
It is very, very good. Yes.
But, of course, his other films are absolutely incredible, too. So what makes Makoto Shinkai so incredible? Oh, man, where to begin? Well, first off, I think anyone who's seen anything from Makoto Shinkai would bring up his animation.
Absolutely.
Bar none. The most beautiful animation you would ever see.
If you need an example, you can just Google the clouds in 5 centimeters a second, or like the backgrounds in 5 centimeters a second. It's incredible. The skylines is just, it's really amazing animation. It's
basically like almost realistic, but with lights and colors emphasized greatly.
Definitely, yeah. It's just a really interesting style. It's not really something you see a lot, so it's really cool.
And I don't know if you knew this, Andrew, but he actually takes a great deal of his scenes and bases them off real screenshots.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because you can see a lot of comparisons online. I've seen a lot of those.
Absolutely.
Garden of Words was a big one, actually.
Oh,
of real places. And then the drawn from Garden of Words.
Right.
Is really cool.
And Garden of Words is his latest film. And of course, it's his highest animation quality yet.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. Every movie that comes out by him, it's like, how the heck could he make this better? And then he does it, and you're just left speechless. It's incredible. From Sunset Streets to A Stain on a Mirror. You look at it in awe.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. But the animation is absolutely not the only thing that he's great at. To me personally, I believe his writing is just as incredible as his animation. For the most part, Makoto Shinkai tells pretty down-to-earth stories, or that's what his most popular films were about.
Yeah, definitely.
Very simple love stories.
And I think actually we were talking about this from the Wind Rises. From last time, we were talking about the human element and the human story.
Yeah.
And I think Shinkai's one of those that does that really well.
Right.
He tells a down-to-earth story.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, obviously I've only seen 5 centimeters per second, but that's really what that is.
Right.
It's a very
Absolutely.
human, down-to-earth story.
A human story that...
Like, Garden of Words seems to be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Definitely.
Yeah, he's very, very good at that.
Yeah. In a sense, he's very polarizing to Hayao Miyazaki. Even though he's been compared as the next Hayao Miyazaki. But I kind of think that's an ignorant North American statement.
Well,
if I were to be so blunt.
And I think the other thing about that is people talk a lot about with that. I think they're talking a lot about the fact that he's
popularity.
He's going to replace him in popularity.
Right.
And I can see that statement. And I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. And I really think
he absolutely
Shinkai's
has
one of the front runners.
Yeah, he really absolutely has the potential to be that. But what I was saying before about how he polarizes Makoto Shinkai, I mean Hayao Miyazaki, excuse me, is that generally Hayao Miyazaki has kind of simple characters in an incredibly visually deep world. Yeah. As it's the reverse with Makoto Shinkai. You're in a very simple, real world with incredibly deep characters. And I
want to say Miyazaki has very good characters. But it's more of the characters push the plot. Right. Like the characters are almost there for the plot in Miyazaki, I feel. Where with the Shinkai, it's really about the characters.
Yeah,
it's really the plot pushes the characters and the character development. And so it's not even to say that, because I don't think you're not saying this, but you know, Miyazaki doesn't have bad characters.
No, not bad, not bad.
But a lot of the side, especially the side characters,
are
really there to push the plot and the main character along.
Yeah.
And in Shinkai's films, there's not side characters. It's really just the main characters themselves.
Yes, there's only a few key characters in all of them. And though Children Who Chase Lost Voices, as you can see, is a very polarizing film to Makoto Shinkai. It plays much more on Miyazaki as it's not about the emotional toll of the characters in a real world, but characters running through a very phantasmic world.
Yeah, and I think that it's kind of interesting that he went that direction with that movie.
Yeah.
Because I've only seen about half the movie. And I saw the first half, and I just can't find it anywhere, unfortunately, to finish it. It's kind of hard to find. But that was the first vibe I got from it. Because I had watched 5 centimeters per second first, and I was expecting more of that.
Exactly.
And then I got kind of this sci-fi fantasy world with, you know, the world is really cool in that movie, and I want to see more of it. But like you said, it seems not very Shinkai. It seems more Miyazaki.
And I think that's what most people get the vibe from first going into Children Who Chase Lost Voices. They're looking for the strong character depth and not worrying so much about like a fantasy world, because traditionally that's not Shinkai. But as a film on its own, it's very great. Yeah,
but is that his only feature-length film, or is that one of a couple different ones?
Oh my gosh, it's hard to say. It depends on what you call feature-length.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I wouldn't. So I guess then I would say the definition of feature-length, 5 centimeters a second isn't.
No.
Right. Yeah. So really like an hour and a half to 2 hour film. Is that kind of? I think that might be his only one.
I believe so. I think also Place Promised in Our Early Days.
I had forgotten about that one. Yeah,
that was an interesting one. The first half of it is very down to earth character depth, but then the second half takes a really strange sci-fi turn. Personally, I didn't think it needed it, but it was still interesting. Okay, but
yeah, because it seems interesting that his two kind of these feature-length films seem more Miyazaki,
right,
than 5 centimeters a second. And I'm wondering if that's just because of the format. Like the fact that he thinks these stories like Garden of Words and 5 centimeters a second are better in a shorter time frame.
You know, I didn't think about it that before, but
Yeah,
I think that's possible.
And
it's a great point.
Yeah, and maybe that's why he does it like that. I don't know.
Yeah, when you look at Garden of Words and 5 centimeters per second, after it finishes, you get a great feeling of content. Like, it did not need to be longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly what I've heard from other people too. Is that they are as long as they need to be.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
They're done, and they didn't need to be 2 hours long.
Yeah, I think it's really smart, but at the same time very brave, because a lot of people don't try for such in between short films. You know, like most short films are like half an hour, and then longer films are hour and a half, 2 hours, and he hits this middle ground. But I think he does it flawlessly.
It's interesting. So, speaking of shorter films, if we want to, we can talk about Little Witch Academia, because that's another another shorter one.
Next on our list.
But yeah, speaking of kind of shorter movies, something, and it's not. It's important to say that this isn't gonna replace Miyazaki, just one movie.
Right.
But another one that was very popular in both Japan and America was Little Witch Academia. Little Witch Academia is a short film by Studio Trigger. You might know Studio Trigger as the people who did Kill la Kill, if you know anything about anime.
Yeah, and also the classic Gurren Lagann.
And also a lot of the people who were on Gurren Lagann moved over to Studio Trigger.
Right.
They decided to do I think it's called a studio test in Japan, but basically they get all of their animators together and they do a short film. And they did Little Witch Academia. And have you seen it at all?
I haven't.
Okay. It's very interesting. It's very, it's like Disney, but anime style. And with the kind of over ridiculous sort of style that you'd find in Gurren Lagann or Kill la Kill.
Okay.
And that is because of, and I'm going to mispronounce his name, but it's Yoshinari, I think? Yes. Who is the director of that. And he was also the key animator on stuff like Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh, okay.
Gurren Lagann, Kill la Kill, stuff like that. So it's a very kind of over-exaggerated style, but it's kind of a kid's movie.
Yeah. In
a lot of ways. And it's interesting because Shinkai he doesn't really make kids movies. Much as in the way that Miyazaki did.
No,
you know, like Spirited Away, it has some complex themes in it, but
so much of it is about adventure.
Yeah, so much of it is about the world and adventure, and still very much a kids movie. And Miyazaki himself says that.
Yeah.
Shinkai doesn't do that. Yeah. And Little Witch Academia is interesting because it does.
Yeah,
it feels Miyazaki.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and
it's kind of interesting.
Even though Trigger isn't really known for much movie stuff, their series has rocketed out of the mainstream and has gotten everyone's attention.
Yeah, definitely.
Because every one of their series has a really interesting, unique animation as well as intriguing writing to it.
Yes, and really, I think that's indicative of what happened with Little Witch Academia. You know, they just made it. It was just a short animation test, short film. They wrote it. They had fun with it, and then it blew up. Yeah. And most recently, what's happened with that is they put up a Kickstarter. If you don't know what Kickstarter is basically just a way to get your projects funded. So a lot of video games, short film projects, things like that go up on Kickstarter, and they get funded. And they put up Little Witch Academia 2. And they were expecting it to be another short film. Well, they got so much money for it that it's going to be about 2 hours long. It's going to be feature length. And they're going to release in Japan, then DVD release and everything in America. So if that goes well, I can see, Yoshinari, and the writer who is Masahiko Atsuka, who I believe also worked on Kill la Kill, actually. But don't quote me on that. I don't know if that's actually correct.
All right.
But I believe that is.
Yeah.
And they'll be doing the second one. They'll be doing Little Witch Academia 2. And if that takes off, I feel like Trigger could start making those movies more.
Yeah, it could catapult them into the film industry.
And the other thing about that is too, and they have to release it in Japanese theaters, and I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know. It was a Kickstarter thing.
Yeah.
They may just be worrying about getting it out to people through DVDs.
It's really interesting that they used Kickstarter for that, because Trigger is a very well-known production company.
It is
beforehand.
And, and it was just, I think it was more so of we don't have a TV deal this time. Like with Kill la Kill, we're getting all the money to do this TV series, but
since it was a small short film, they were going off the grid on
exactly. And so they said, well, we want to make another one.
Yeah.
How do we make another one? So, I think that could really catapult them into being, like you said, making feature films.
I agree.
And I would be really excited to see. I'm really excited to see number 2, period. But I'd be really excited to see other things as well. Especially Yo-Yo Shinari does some of the best character design, in my opinion, that I've ever seen.
They're very, very interesting.
And I think that could be very cool to see in movies.
Yeah.
Because I think he would get to do more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There would be more movies for him to make these crazy, awesome characters.
And I'm sure with Little Witch Academia, he's proven that they can reach to a younger audience, as opposed to Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill, which I wouldn't suggest to really, really small kids.
It's probably not.
It's crazy and uppity, but violent and sexual. Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah, and it seems like it's an odd direction, but it's so interesting to me because seriously, you do Gurren Lagann and stuff like Kill la Kill and stuff, and then you just make a little movie called Little Witch Academia, and then suddenly it's really popular.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm interested to see what happens. As far as replacing Miyazaki in popularity, way too early to tell. Because other people that we're talking about, Shinkai has multiple
they've
things.
Been in the movie industry for a long time, but
been in the movie industry.
Trigger's kind of at a disadvantage here, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to keep making TV shows.
Yeah.
But we don't know if they're going to... Exactly, but we don't know if they're going to be in theaters. So...
I think it would be really interesting to see them increase in popularity for films and do more films because, as we've said before, they can kind of prove that they can go to a younger audience, but at the same time, I think they can reach a much different and a much stronger, energetic personality as opposed to Miyazaki, which was a whimsical world, but it was also a super calm world, And if you've seen anything from Trigger, it's like jump in your face, go nuts, superpower attacks all the time, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely all over the place. It's much more. I don't want to use. Well, it's much more stereotypical anime.
Yeah.
Much more what a Western audience would think anime would be. Whereas I think Miyazaki is.
Definitely.
Yeah. Whereas I think Miyazaki is.
But, of course, for the many of us who watches a lot more anime, they have significant differences. Oh, yes. Especially in animation.
Oh, incredibly.
Yeah.
And that's what's so interesting to me, that why Little Witch Academia was so popular. Because it has such a strange art style. Because it combines kind of the backgrounds of, Miyazaki and then the characters of Gurren Lagann.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It's really interesting, yeah, definitely. So, our third person on our list here is Mamoru Hosoda, who has done most recently Wolf Children. Yes. So, we saw Wolf Children at
Anime Expo, and it was incredible.
Yeah, at Anime Expo, and it was awesome. It is, if you have not seen it yet, totally recommend it. It's completely different. It's very unique, very kind of strange, and it's very, very
it's fantastic and heartfelt, and brings a completely new visual on werewolves.
Yes.
Like I've never ever seen werewolves portrayed that way.
And I actually, that was, in my opinion, that was the interesting part to me. For anybody who doesn't know, I won't really spoil the movie here, but basically it's about a mother who has to raise two children who can turn into wolves. They're basically werewolves.
Yeah.
And they can turn into wolves.
They can be wolves voluntarily.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting concept, and he just runs away with it and does something amazing.
Yeah.
Really a lot about parenting and a lot about family, and it's very, very good.
Which, as this director has developed, has proven that's absolutely one of his strongest cards in his arsenal.
Absolutely.
The emphasis on family. And personally, it's the most attractive feature to his films, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree, because the other one he did is Summer Wars.
Yeah, which also had a great emphasis on family.
And that is also a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, it's very, very good.
It definitely takes a different stride from Wolf Children.
Yes.
Since they both have that aspect of family, but emotionally and pacing, Summer Wars is almost cut in half into two different feelings.
Yeah.
Because Summer Wars also involves this entire world in the internet, and things get much crazier and much more action-packed in there.
Wolf Children's much slower, and it's much more deliberate in what it tries to do.
Yeah.
Summer Wars is sometimes it gets crazy, and I think that's part of the two different family dynamics too.
Yeah.
Because Summer Wars, there's a lot of family, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Absolutely.
And in Wolf Children, it's just the three of them.
Yeah.
So, kind of interesting the way he did that.
I feel like Summer Wars, its plot and concept was much more appealing to the general anime audience.
I would say that you're right. Yes.
So for people who didn't know this director, they'd see, oh, people go on the internet, look at this animation, it's beautiful. But they get in the theater and they see this whole other side about the emphasis on family, and it's like, okay, then you know who this guy is and his style, hence Wolf Children, emphasizing that style completely.
Yes, absolutely. So the other movie that Hosoda has made is The Girl Who Left Their Time. Neither of us have seen it, so full disclosure on that one.
Yeah, I believe we've heard that it's out of print now.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely nuts.
And I was really disappointed, because as soon as we said we were doing this podcast tonight, I was like, oh, you know what I'm going to do later? I'm going to go look for The Girl Who Left Their Time. Nope, can't find it anymore. So that's unfortunate. I will see it at some point.
Yeah.
Through some kind of means. I'll find somebody who has a DVD or something.
Absolutely. I got a connection.
So. Yeah, there we go. But that movie, from what I've heard, is, a lot of people think that's his best as well.
And from trailers and stuff, it seems more down to earth, like Wolf Children.
Yes, it's much more like Wolf Children, and it had a significant audience here in the States. I just saw that, usually...
That's so weird to think about, because it's out of print now.
Yeah,
I wonder why that is.
I have no idea. But things like Wolf Children and things like Girl Who Left Their Time always make it over here. Yeah. And then for some reason, that's the movie that people like the LA Times like to focus on and do full reviews. So I've seen full reviews from LA Times and New York Times and Wall Street Journal and everything for The Girl Who Left Their Time.
Yeah.
And all of them generally really positive. So the interesting thing about Hosoda, though, is as we're talking about this, he's also not really for children either. No. I mean, Summer Wars, you can say, was kind of, but I would say it's older. It's older than Miyazaki's movies still. I think Miyazaki's movies definitely skew maybe below the teen age. Right. But Hosoda's movies are teenage. Yeah. But so one advantage I would say to his more adult elements is that I think there's still things that kids can relate to going into the family aspects. But instead of, for Wolf Children example, instead of relating to experiences with the kids,
the kids relate to experiences with their mothers.
Yes. Yeah.
But you remember what other movie he also made? The Digimon movie.
Oh, jeez. Which apparently, according to Paul and other friends that we have,
it's totally Summer Wars.
Whatever.
And it came out first.
I know it came out first.
The
whole internet concept is not new. I know.
But one thing that Digimon movie doesn't have that Summer Wars has is the giant emphasis on family.
Yeah, that's definitely.
I mean, of course, it's a much stricter script. You're like going after a kids monster series kind of. It's a lot less to work with.
Yeah.
But I may get like flamed for this or whatever, but it was so much better than the Pokemon movie.
The Digimon movie?
Yes.
Okay. See,
I thought it had so much more depth.
See, I have never seen the all of the Digimon movie. Mm-hmm. I've seen most of it, but I don't remember a lot of it.
Okay.
It was a long time ago. I'll just go ahead and say that much.
Yeah.
It was like around the same time that we just kind of that fad was going.
Right.
But that was, if I remember correctly, that might have been one of his first movies. And
yeah, I can't remember how that compares to Girl Who Lived Through Time.
Yeah, I mean, Girl Who Lived Through Time was 2006. And so I don't know when
that might very well have been before it then.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I don't know because I mean that's like the only one that I don't really remember. But yeah, apparently glass shattering moment. As soon as you said it's like the Digimon movie, I went, oh crap, you're right. It totally is.
There are a lot of similarities. Okay, people. If you want to comment or bring some replies to this, bring it on. Tell me how I'm wrong. Really, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Remember, this is the voice of the people.
Honestly, I have to agree with you on the fact that the entire internet thing is almost exactly the same.
Yeah,
everything gets hacked, and they have to save it.
And generally, at the end, they're saved by the masses of people. Mm-hmm. And then there is a countdown sequence of a bomb heading towards them as well.
Yeah, it's very similar. I will fully admit.
They're very, very similar, but I love them both.
Yeah.
I absolutely love them both.
Probably Digimon, probably due to the fact that was an awesome series.
It was!
We're gonna get sidetracked, though.
Yeah. Digimon versus Pokemon, coming soon.
No, God, no.
Oh.
We do not want to incite an internet flame war, please.
Bring it on.
All right.
Okay, so we have one more person on the list, and that is Goro Miyazaki.
Yep. And in general, I guess you could say Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
Kind of taking the place. So, this is interesting because Hayao Miyazaki and Goro Miyazaki are definitely not the same, first of all. Just generally in style, they're already different.
Yeah.
In fact, it's kind of interesting. Now, you haven't seen a Goro Miyazaki yet.
I haven't.
Right?
Nope.
And I've only seen one of them. I've only seen Tales from Earthsea. Mm-hmm. From Up on Poppy Hill came out. I didn't even know it came out. I've
heard great things about that.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it, but I felt like there was no advertisement at all for that movie.
I didn't lost gem.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was out until 2 weeks before.
When did that come out?
I want to say that was 2011.
Okay, so pretty recent.
Yeah, pretty. It was
3 years ago, but I think anything 7 years ago was yesterday.
Well, yeah.
Man, time.
Yeah. But, so, Tales from Earthsea. Just going to talk about this real quick. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't at all near a level of the old Miyazaki films.
Right.
I compare Tales from Earthsea a lot with Princess Mononoke for a couple reasons. The worlds are kind of similar in a way that there's that kind of fantasy element, but also there's a lot about nature. And there's a lot about... in Tales from Earthsea, it's a lot about disrupting the balance.
Yeah.
They keep calling it disrupting the balance.
Mm-hmm.
And in Princess Mononoke, that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they keep talking about, technology is destroying the world, basically.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing in Tales from Earthsea. Here's my problem. Princess Mononoke does it really well, I think. and it's subtle enough for the message not to get in the way of the movie.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Princess Mononoke, you can sit there and go, wow, the visuals, the dialogue, the characters, everything fits really well, and I can see the environmental message, basically, behind it. But it's never shoved in my face, and I never feel like it's getting in the way. In Tales from Earthsea, there is so much talk about the balance, and about how you can't disrupt it at all, that I'm just sitting there going...
It sounds almost like a PSA or something.
It is, and by the end, I really thought that it was. Like, by the end, I'm like, wow, can somebody just go ahead and say this is about global warming?
No, you said originally it was from, like, a group of stories?
Yeah, it's by a group of stories by, I believe, a French author, and she was very excited for the movie to come out. Apparently, later, they said that it didn't turn out quite the way they wanted, because the plot kind of went this really weird direction.
Maybe that's the direction.
Yeah, and
because I was gonna say, do you think the original novels were like that?
I don't know. You know, that's the thing is, if it was, I almost feel like it. I can already tell it would be handled better.
Right.
Because this was
true.
This was true. So. It was just so obvious.
Okay.
You know, and to give people a rundown, if you haven't seen the movie, when they talk about the balance, is there's dragons in this world.
Okay. And
the dragons are dying out because of humans.
Oh, I see.
And so the allegories and the symbolism to the environmental message and global warming and that whole thing is just, it's just in your face, and it's there, and it won't go away. So, I mean, that was one of my major problems with Tales from Earthsea, is that it just, there was no subtlety to it. There was no, you know, it said, this is the message, and it's just slapping you in the face with it the whole time.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right. And in Princess Mononoke and in other movies, it's much more subtle. Honestly...
There's so many other things to worry about in Princess Mononoke.
Exactly.
There's, like, demons popping up everywhere.
Yeah, there's so much going on, and the movie flows well, and then gets to the message when it needs to. Yeah. And then the message
is there, but you have a whole adventure to embark on yourself.
Exactly.
To have it, like, take over you.
Mm-hmm. So, that was my problem with Tales from Earthsea. My other problem, and this is kind of a minor one, but I think it's still valid, is I have to be honest, the animation just wasn't there.
Really?
Every time I saw a character on screen, I went, this just doesn't have as much oomph. Yeah. or emotion or something. I still don't know what it is, really, but there just wasn't enough.
It's those subtle differences that end up making a huge impact. You know?
Yeah, and it got to be such a huge problem by the end, because, and I won't spoil anything again, but by the end there's supposedly this whole battle going on. Uh-huh. And I was like, it just kept popping into my mind, and this might be my fault, just from an expectations point of view, but I'm sitting there like, this was by Hayao Miyazaki. I think I'd be into this scene a little bit more, but as it stands, there's just like stuff falling and there's stuff happening.
Oh, that's too bad.
It just kind of fell flat near the end.
Yeah.
And, man, that was so disappointing. Honestly, it really was.
You know, now, with all that said, I would say Goro Miyazaki has the highest chance of being the next Miyazaki, because he is Hayao Miyazaki's son. He's the heir to the throne. And that's why he has such a much higher advantage over any of these people, regardless of what people have to say about his work.
Exactly. And I think that's the main thing, is that he has a head start because of the name.
Yes.
I mean, people are going to want to go see a movie by Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli.
Exactly.
And he's still at Studio Ghibli, and his last name is still Miyazaki. Yes. I really agree. I think it's going to be a matter of, if his next movie holds up, and if people go and see it in the theater, I think that's an important thing, especially in Japan.
Absolutely.
I think it could do well enough where he's just instantly the front runner. of Studio Ghibli.
Right, yeah.
I mean, everybody else is getting old. Hayao Miyazaki is 70s.
He's done more than enough for all of us.
The director of Grave of the Fireflies is almost 80, I want to say now, at this point.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think he directed one last film last year, the director of Grave of the Fireflies.
Okay.
One last film, and then he was pretty much done. So there's nobody else at Studio Ghibli that's already made a movie.
Yeah.
I should say that. This could, honestly, Studio Ghibli could become kind of a Pixar thing.
They're already owned by Disney, aren't they?
They're not owned by Disney. They partner with Disney for distribution.
Okay.
Over here, I'm pretty sure, yeah. But Studio Ghibli could be a Pixar thing where somebody makes a movie, and it was great, and then somebody else comes in and makes another movie, and you've never heard of, and it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it may become a studio where it just breeds directors along with good animators.
Exactly. The big name producers that make stars, not stars aren't born.
Exactly. So I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I hope that it is, because I worry that Hayao Miyazaki was one of a kind almost.
Mm-hmm.
That he was kind of a rare occurrence. Much in the same way, and going back to Pixar, much in the same way that John Lasseter is. If you guys don't know who John Lasseter is, he was the executive producer at Pixar, and then he went to Disney when they were bought. And now he's executive director of, like, Pixar and Disney Animation Studios, who did Frozen, and he's everything. He's director of everything now.
Yeah.
And everything he has his name on is of high quality.
Okay.
I think that's a rare occurrence.
Now, when you say he's one of a kind, I would definitely agree with that. But one thing I'm not worried about is losing the only director that can touch the hearts of millions, because I would say both Makoto Shinkai and Hosoda have great potential to do the exact same thing. But the thing is, the only trick to them is they're not like Miyazaki in style, and they're not as popular. They don't have Ghibli behind them or anything like that.
Yeah.
But artistically and the stories they've produced, they absolutely have just as much talent as Hayao Miyazaki.
Now, and I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
I think I really would. I think it's really just a matter of people go see their movies.
Word of mouth and luck.
Word of mouth, and honestly, yeah.
That's a sad part.
It's
about
word
this
of mouth
industry.
and luck, and I think you're right. I think Goro Miyazaki has that in the bag. Yeah. He's already going to have word of mouth, and
right.
He doesn't really need luck. Well, he does to a certain extent. But
you know what we got to do then?
What?
We got to be the word of mouth for these other directors.
Yeah.
Let's voice them out, people.
Whatever movie is coming out from both of those directors next time, I'm watching them immediately.
Yes.
Especially
absolutely.
The last two things I've seen from both those people were really, really good.
Yeah.
So I'm in. And I need to see Garden of Words at some point.
Oh, absolutely beautiful.
And finish Children of Changeless Voices.
Yes. Yes.
I gotta find that. I don't know.
Okay, so analyzing all four of these directors, who do you have most favoritism to?
Favoritism?
Favoritism. Who do you think is the most potential? Who reaches into your heart the most?
Who reaches in and rips it out?
Rips it out and lets it pulse in their hand.
I'm going to go ahead and say Hosoda does. Okay. I think I've only seen one film by Goro Miyazaki. Little Witch Academia is one thing, right? But like Hosoda, I've seen 2, maybe 3 if you count the Digimon movie.
You better count it.
Well,
counted.
It was a long time ago, dude. But I think he's the one that has a chance to make a movie that has the kind of mass appeal that Miyazaki did, and the kind of quality that he has.
I understand that.
Favorite, though, like an actual favorite of these directors, it's definitely not Goro Miyazaki. No offense, Goro, but didn't really like Tales from Earthsea. But, yeah, favorite, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Well, again, I guess I'll reiterate a little more. I said before, my favorite, hands down, is Makoto Shinkai. And for a number of reasons, I love him so much. We talked about the animation and the writing, but the stories are so relatable. And he's so great at bringing up feelings that every single person has felt before, to singular emotions, all the way up to an entire experience. He's so good at bringing the realism of life forward, both visually and through dialogue and plot. I think I've said this before, but I just love bringing out the beauty in the ordinary.
Yeah.
That is one of my most favorite things, and that's why I love Makoto Shinkai so much.
And like you said, I think he just needs a little bit of luck.
Absolutely.
And some word of mouth. And,
save Little Witch Academia, he's probably lowest on the list in popularity.
Yeah, in pure popularity, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's definitely making a name for himself.
Yeah.
He was at AX.
That's true.
I got
That's a good point.
my DVD signed. It was amazing. Oh, great moment.
I mean, he definitely has a Western audience, and he has that built-in Japanese audience. So
yeah, it's now up to the Western producers to notice him.
And to give him I love places like Sendai Filmworks, which is, I think, who did Garden of Words, right?
Yeah.
Who
and Kids on the Slope.
And Kids on the Slope, yes. Yeah. But I love places like that, but they are very niche, and they only go for, they come to AX for a reason, because that's where they're going to get the majority of their sales.
Right.
So, for someone like, I think it'd be huge if someone like Disney picked up Hosoda or Shinkai.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That'd be enormous.
Everything. Yeah.
One of their films releasing in theaters in America, huge.
Yeah.
You know? So, we'll see if it happens.
I'd say between the two, definitely Disney would pick up Hosoda.
Yes.
Because it has the fantasy element and the family element, which is so important to Disney.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. Where Makoto Shinkai is more straight up realist drama.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing. I absolutely love it, but Disney will not is not as attracted to that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. All right. Well, that was a good discussion, I think.
Yes. I'm really looking forward to the feedback on this one.
Yeah, me too. We really want to hear from you guys. These are kind of the most popular ones in both the West and in Japan. Yeah. So this is who we picked. But if we missed somebody, shout it out. Tell us who we missed. Tell us who
I want you guys to give us some rare gems.
Seriously. Yeah. Find somebody, and yes, people like the director of Grave of the Fireflies or something like that. We know who they are, but we want the gems, the things that nobody knows.
Tell us about them, why you think they should be the next Hayao Miyazaki. We're really looking forward to your feedback. So, So we have a number of contacts.
Yes.
Again. So, should we go over them again?
Yes.
Okay. So, we're on Facebook / The Fan Voice Podcast, YouTube / The Fan Voice Podcast,
Twitter at The Fan Voice Podcast. Use hashtag Fan Voice Podcast.
Yeah. To
get in contact with us. We'll see it.
Yes. And did you say the email?
No.
Okay. Email fans@thefanvoice.com.
Yes. All right. So I guess we will see you guys next week.
We're really looking forward to your feedback. Thank you so much.
All right. See you guys next week.